Welcome to the Fascia-Informed Therapist, the essential podcast for occupational therapy professionals looking to deepen their understanding of fascia's pivotal role in therapy and health. I'm your host, Amy Mayer, an experienced occupational therapist, practice owner, and dedicated educator. Here we'll dive into the fascinating world of fascia, exploring its significance in the human body and its critical influence on occupational therapy practice. Each episode will bring you cutting-edge insights, expert interviews, and practical strategies to help you confidently integrate the science of fascia into your therapeutic approach. Whether you're a seasoned practitioner or just starting out, our goal is to equip you with high-quality, evidence-based, and fascia-informed continuing education opportunities that will enhance your skills and benefit your clients. So join us as we unravel the complexities of fascia and transform the way you practice occupational therapy. All health and wellness practitioners are welcome. Let's learn, grow, and evolve together. This is Amy, and this is another edition of the Fascia-Informed Therapist. Today, I want to start with a thank you to the Kansas Occupational Therapy Association. Last Saturday, Caitlin and I had such a great time down there. It was a beautiful campus, and the space that we presented in, the building was gorgeous, and we had such a nice room, and we had a pretty packed room. There was just so much amazing energy in the room that day. And Caitlin and I both had a really, really good time. People were so engaged and asked great questions, offered great information, and it was just really, really fun. So anyway, I hope we get to go back there sometime because it was, can't say enough. It was really wonderful. And then tomorrow we leave for Denver, and then we'll drive up into the mountains and have another hopefully wonderful time with the practitioners in Colorado. So I'll report next week, I guess. But this time I wanted to talk about people who have inspired and influenced me. I think we have a lot to learn inside our own profession. Occupational therapy has so much depth and so much breadth that we can keep learning and learning and learning. And that's one of the things that really excites me about the profession, is that you can sort of reinvent yourself and move into different practice areas, and you can really specialize, or you can be a jack of all trades. And it's such a unique and wonderful profession. I really cannot imagine doing anything else. I started my college career planning to be a clinical psychologist, but somewhere along the way I just couldn't see myself doing it. And I just think I was imagining myself in a room sitting down all day, and I've got too much energy for that. And when I went to take a test, I found out that OT was a second on the list, and I really had no idea what it was. Speech therapy was on the top, and I thought I knew what that was because my little brother got speech therapy, and I was still imagining myself sitting across from somebody all day, just sitting rather than doing. And so when I started to go and volunteer in an OT department, I fell in love with the profession. I really still didn't know what was going on, but I was able to watch an OT in a kitchen inside a hospital making pancakes with somebody, with this little old farmer in his plaid shirt and his overalls. And I thought, wow, that looks fun. Everybody appears to be having an enjoyable time, and there's pancakes. That's amazing. So later I found out, of course, what truly was going on under the surface when they were making pancakes. But anyway, that's not the point of what I wanted to talk about today. I want us to think about learning from each other. I think ongoing, if you're not a lifelong learner, it's really hard to be an occupational therapy practitioner. It's really hard to be in the health professions, period. I also believe it's really important to take students, and that we have kind of a duty to help train the next generation of practitioners. I've taken, I don't even think I can count how many level 2 students I've taken over a 32-year career. And I've also taken a lot of capstone students, whatever they're calling them these days, the specialized rotations that you can do when you get your doctorate in OT. Taken, dozens of that level of student as well. And that's what Caitlin did, and that's how she ended up working with me. But I also believe that it's important to look outside of your own profession when you're learning, when you're doing your lifelong learning. And I don't just mean PT, nursing, speech therapy. I mean even broader than that. When we start to silo ourselves, I think it limits our growth as a person and as a profession. And in OT, we consider ourselves to be holistic, and we look at the whole person, and we do have a very unique view with that is quite different from other professions. Much of healthcare can really be microscopic when looking at a problem, and we do look very broadly. But I think we can still learn from other professions. And just a day or two ago, I was listening to Jay Shetty, who has a podcast. He's the author of Think Like a Monk, and he was interviewing Rick Rubin. And if you don't know who he is, he's quite a character, but he is a record producer. But he also wrote a book called The Creative Act, and I read that several years ago. And so when he pops up, Rick Rubin pops up on a podcast or something, then I'm probably going to listen to it. And in the podcast, he talked about a study of employees and creativity. And what they found was the least creative employees had a circle of friends who all knew each other. And the most creative employees had a circle of friends, but those friends did not know each other. Now, of course, it doesn't mean there's other friends who do, but they had more friends that didn't know each other. So what they determined is that when you have a closed circle, it's less likely that new ideas are going to be brought in. And when you have more people that don't know each other, you have a wider group of different people, then you're going to get new ideas. And when I think about myself, I've always had friends that didn't know each other, because we have those friends from high school, from college, that probably don't know each other, but maybe you've brought them together in some way. But I remember when I did work at the hospital and when I did work at the university, most of my friends were also OTs. So it was, and a lot of them knew each other. So it was kind of a closed circle. And when I think about where I am now in my practice, I run into so many different people inside and outside of OT, and just the different opportunities that have come along and the people that I've met along the way, it has just massively widened my circle. And one of the problems that most OTs have anyway is we're creative and we have ideas, and man, I just don't feel like I can shut it off sometimes. And when I started thinking about it, I just started jotting down who are my friends in my circle that probably don't know anybody else in the circle, or at least don't know them very well. Maybe things have crossed paths at an event or something, but they don't really, hang out together. And so I made a list of some of the people that I will frequently hang out with, and I've got an OT, a psychiatrist, a supplement company executive, an Ironman conditioning coach, an integrative psychotherapist, a salon operator owner, a spiritual director, a tech company executive, a teacher, a retired OT, an author editor, a massage therapist, a nurse and business owner, and a construction project manager. So those are that's some of the variety in my friends list, and it's so cool because when I hang out with any one of these people, I inevitably hear something different because, of course, then they're operating in a whole different world than I am, so they're going to hear different things and learn different things. And then when they start talking about those things, it just sparks ideas in me. It's taking a new idea and overlapping it with the stuff I already know, and that sparks creativity, and that brings me joy. And I just hearing all these different opinions and all these amazing people in my life I feel so very grateful for that too. And then I also think it's being a practice owner and a hands-on therapist, I also get the chance to meet so many different people in that part of my life. And those people don't, well, sometimes people refer family and friends and then they know each other, but most of the time they don't. And when I get the opportunity to learn who they are, because that's what we do as OTs, is we have to learn a little bit about who they are in order to best help them. And then I get to see them, over and over, and it also brings ideas in, and it's just, I'm just so grateful for that. So I wanted to switch gears for a second and talk about how that has played out. And this next part might sound a little bit like me whining, but whatever. So for the past 6 years, I can't believe it's been 6 years, but I have been trying to get something at the National AOTA conference on fascia. And for 5 of those years, I have been rejected. And I should hear any day now about year 6. So Caitlin and I submitted something again this past year to try and get in this year in the Philadelphia conference next April. But I'm pretty sure it's not me. It's the fascia that's causing the problem, because I've spoken at AOTA many times on a wide variety of topics. I've also spoken at the AOTA Education Summit. So I've submitted proposals on lots of different things, from teaching to, I even did a session on occupational therapy's involvement in, oh my gosh, I can't even think of the right word for it now. It was so long ago. When I worked at the hospital, the OTs were, when there was a big nursing shortage, OT was pulled in to help deal with pressure sores across the institution, and OT led the way in driving that program. And we spoke at AOT on that. So I've talked about a lot of different things, but fascia has not been one of them because it's never gotten in. I've taught in higher ed for 18 years and even received a Faculty of the Year award from my peers, so I know how to write a damn learning objective and put together an active learning session. So I hope everybody will keep their fingers crossed for us, and that we will get accepted and be going to Philadelphia to talk about fascia science. So we'll see what happens. But in the past, here's some of the comments, because when you submit something and you get feedback from the reviewers, and there's typically at least 2 reviewers, And I remember I got my hopes up one time because I started reading and somebody had written, wow, this is amazing topic and it's very timely. But then the co-reviewer said, this is not OT, and dropped it, the score way down, so it didn't get in. Another one, you don't have any references from OT. Well, no, that's because OT's not paying attention to fascia and fascia science. We're not doing research on this yet, so there's not going to be any, but there is plenty of references from how fascia is affecting the human body and what it is in the human body, but that wasn't what these particular reviewers wanted to hear. Another one was fascia and fascia work is not occupation-based. Well, I guess then neither is anything about the muscles or anything about the lymphatic system. And I'm sure those reviewers they had it in their minds that all I was going to talk about was myofascial release. But even so, if I am going to talk about manual therapy, there's all sorts of manual therapy things happening at the national conference. And at one of them, I believe it was last year, I submitted to talk about fascia science, and I felt like I made it very clear that that's what I was talking about. And the reviewer comment was myofascial release is not OT. And I didn't use the word myofascial or release anywhere in the submission. But there's a lot of preconceived notions out there about fascia, and it was interesting too because I had somebody come up to me and talk to me a little bit about the science versus myofascial release and ask some questions around that, and I had to help them tease apart that those are two different things. There's the science of the fascial system, and then there's myofascial release, the technique, but then there's also several different approaches to myofascial release out there. So we had to tease all those things apart. So anyway, I submitted again this year. I had two other trusted OT faculty members that I know from my circle, who both have presented at AOTA many times. I asked them to review my submission, give me feedback. They gave me incredible feedback and wished me luck. So we will see what happens. I'm sure I'll mention it in an upcoming podcast on whether we are in or whether we are out. So anyway, I wanted to talk now about who has influenced me inside and outside of OT. And the first person that I want to mention is an occupational therapist, and her name is Jean Britt. And she was one of the senior OTs in my very first job in Northeast Iowa. And she was a very smart, and still is a very smart woman. We have not kept in touch. No idea if she'll ever hear this, but she taught me myofascial work. She was the one who went and learned some myofascial work so that we could have more body-based options of dealing with pain in our inpatient rehabilitation and outpatient setting. When you're working with such complex people and diagnoses, then having an option for less medication is a good thing. And she went to learn that. She got super busy and asked for help, and I was the eager new grad who said, yes, teach me, I will learn. But she not only taught me how to use this manual therapy, she also taught me how to integrate it with the traditional occupational therapy approach. And that is the blessing, because I've seen too many therapists who, once they learn myofascial release, they just do that. And, there are lots of sessions where that's all I do is the hands-on piece, but it's really the OT layer that brings the magic and helps people get better faster and stay better. The next person inside OT is a faculty member I had many years ago when I was getting my doctorate in OT, and her name is Doris Pierce, and she wrote a book that I still have on my shelf, even though I graduated with my doctorate in 2007, called Occupation by Design. And I think the reason that I still have this book and I think about her is it really, I think I did a Western Michigan University where I got my master's, did a great job of really making me an occupation-based therapist. But this book just took it so much deeper and really taught me how to dissect occupations. And that has become incredibly valuable in my practice now. And I think it is what helps. It's really the OT magic, that learning how to dissect occupations to figure out where habits of movement and postures are coming from that increase the tension in the fascial system and end up causing pain. And then the other therapist is, of course, if you don't know who Jan Davis is, then you must Google Jan Davis occupational therapy. But if you've done anything in phys rehab, and especially if you've been teaching in phys rehab, you know who Jan is. And our paths intersected when I was newly teaching the phys rehab course at Creighton back in 2009 or 10, somewhere in there. And she was incredibly innovative with what she was producing to help faculty members in their teaching and help students learn especially in her specialty, and putting videos on DVDs and selling them as instruction modules, and they were absolutely incredible. And I used a lot of her content in class, and it really shaped a lot of how I taught. And she's a very gifted OT, first of all, and then a very innovative OT in her business as well. Then outside of OT, Katie Bowman is somebody that I talk about when I do presentations a lot because of her heavy influence. She's a biomechanist. She's written a lot of books. I have every book she's ever written on my shelf and have read some of them many, many times. And it just really changed my understanding of movement and its importance in our health, and how it really hit home in the area of epigenetics, and that how we choose to move or not move changes things and can profoundly influence our health. And then massively influenced my understanding of posture, and layering her information with what I know about fascia and OT has just really shaped things very differently for me. And something that I've presented on many, many times in, state conferences. We have a course on, it's good stuff. Tom Myers wrote the book Anatomy Trains, and this was the first book that I was able to find that really taught me about the science of the fascial system. And that book, I think, is now in its 4th edition. But finding that book really, started opening the floodgates of the science and where to find it, and amazing. The next outside of OT is Stuart McGill. He is retired now, but he is a physiotherapist from Canada. And he wrote a book called Back Mechanic, and that book really, it's meant for therapists, it's meant for the public, but it really helped me understand the back and practical approaches to help the back to heal. And again, layering that with what I know about the fascia just really exponentially grew my understanding. And I had the good fortune of hearing him speak at the International Fascia Congress in 2022 in Montreal. And they really, really, really tried hard to get him to come and speak to us. And he agreed to it. And one of the things he said during his presentation was that he wish he would have better understood fascia and fascia science when he was doing his own research and writing. Because now, when he knows what he knows now, he said it really fills in the blanks. And that's amazing there. The next is Daniel Lieberman. He wrote a book called Exercised, and he is a anthropologist, I want to say. Why can't I remember right now? But the idea of evolutionary psychology has always fascinated me, and thinking about how we were really designed to move, and our growth and how the world functions has changed so quickly from being hunter-gatherers to having the technological age. And our bodies haven't kept up. Our bodies still need the type of movement like we're living in nature, but we're not getting anything close to that. Nothing even close to that. The closest is the trend for natural movement, and I'm sure I've mentioned on other podcasts that I've got certified in that back in 2019, and that was actually an offshoot. I learned about that via Katie Bowman, so I'll give her credit for that as well. But the book Exercise, really, one of the things that really hit home in that book is that as bodies that are still living in hunter-gatherer times, they're still created for hunter-gatherer times, that the emphasis in that time was to try and conserve energy. So we're not wired to want to exercise in the way that we exercise today. We're not wired for it, and we do a lot of shaming for people that don't exercise. And that could be its own podcast topic right there. And the next is Robert Schleip. Schleip. I'm still not exactly sure the right pronunciation, but he was at the Fascia Research Congress too. And I've listened to many webinars that he's done, read his book, he's edited books, written books. He is the most enthusiastic person, researcher I know who studies fascia and fascia science. And he's incredibly gifted at explaining it and makes a massive effort to try and translate the hard science for clinicians and practitioners. So he is just an amazing person. And then from a business perspective, I gotta give kudos to Jan Davis again, because years and years ago, I even after I left the university and had the opportunity to cross paths with Jan and pick her brain about some other things that I was doing and developing in my practice, and she gave me some incredible advice, and it's influenced my business moving forward and continues to this day. And then I also found a podcast called Mind Your Business by a man named James Wedmore. And I've taken some of his courses as well, because the hardest thing for an OT is, we're generally not salespeople. So we have something, especially when you're a person or you're a therapist out there with 30 some years of experience, and you have so much to turn around and share with everybody. And we could create all these things, and then we just put them out there and said, would anybody like to buy my fascia science course? I'd love to teach you about it. We're not good salespeople. So his business approach, he specifically does education for people who are selling courses online. And he doesn't just teach you how to sell, he teaches you about mindset. And he has such a wonderful spirituality component to his teaching that hits home with me. It feels so much better than a lot of other really salesy things that I've come across. And it's all about his messages, really. You just have to find out what people are looking for, and then, give them what they want. And if you can help them solve a problem or be better at their job or whatever, then it's just a matter of saying the right things to help them know that this can help them with that, and at least get them to take a look at it. So I'm learning how to do that. And I don't know if I'm doing it great yet, but it's a learning process. It's definitely a learning process. So my message, he has nothing to do with OT at all. I don't even know if he knows what OT is. But anyway, my message today is just looking inside and outside of your traditional lanes. And if you're a therapist who does lymphedema, looking outside the lymphedema continuing ed, looking outside of the books, you could probably learn so much from Katie Bowman and some of these other people as well. But learn what you can. Go down the rabbit hole of what your specialization is. But then know once you've done that, when you start and you have that incredibly important, strong foundation, then when you start to learn other things, you can more easily layer it in. And that was something that I said when I started my session last Saturday with the amazing group of practitioners in the room was, my job is to teach you about posture today, and it's your job to integrate it with the expertise you already have. And for some of you, you're going to take everything that I want to share with you and integrate it fully, and others of you are going to take bits and pieces. But I'm guessing absolutely none of them walked away with nothing, because everything that we talked about can also be applied to themselves and their family members. So let's wrap it up there. Think about who your circle is, think about what you're learning, and reflect on that. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks. Thank you for tuning in to the Fascia-Informed Therapist. It's been a pleasure sharing insights and strategies to help you integrate fascia science into your practice. I'm Amy Mayer, and I hope today's episode has inspired you to explore further and take your therapeutic skills to the next level. Remember, we're committed to creating and providing top-notch, evidence-based, fascia-informed continuing education that empowers you as an occupational therapy practitioner. Stay connected with us for more enriching content, and don't forget to check out our online courses to deepen your expertise. Until next time, keep expanding your knowledge, refining your skills, and confidently applying the science of fascia to your practice. Here's to advancing together in health and wellness.